Since I'm on that topic, let's just talk about micromarring versus holograms. I see some people that will buff with an orbital polisher, and they're seeing a pad haze pattern, the way they move the polisher, and they'll call that holograms. That is not holograms. We in the industry, we need to have specific definitions for words so we know what we're talking about. So if someone calls me up on the phone or sends me a text or an email and says, Mike, I'm trying to get the holograms out of my 1970 satellite, I know exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about somebody that took a wool pad on a rotary, maybe even a foam pad, and they're buffing out the car and they left holograms, and chances are those holograms could be fairly deep. If someone says, Mike, I'm pulling out holograms, and I say, what's your polisher? And they go, it's a Porter cable. I go, well, those aren't holograms. That you could call that tick marks, DA haze, micromarring, or pad haze, okay? So, but it's not holograms. It's a haze, it's a scratch pattern, but it's very distinct because of the action of the tool oscillating and rotating versus rotary, which is just rotating. And then if you really want to go deep, the difference between pad haze and micromarring with a gear driven versus a free spinning is, here's something I always type. Generally speaking, a free spinning random orbital polisher will finish out nicer, more consistently over a wider spectrum of paints. That's a whole lot of words to say. If you're working on soft paint, probably ought to be finishing out with something like a Porter cable, Rupes Bigfoot 15, Griot's Garage G9, something that's a free spinning because they're less aggressive. They'll finish out nicer on soft paints. Conversely, the gear-driven orbitals like the Rupes Millet, Rennie Doyle's DB8, the Flex 3401, the Super Beast, the Sea Beast, and now the Hercules force rotation orbital polisher, because they're gear-driven, they have so much power, they will tend to leave pad haze or pad trails in the paint when finishing out on soft paint. So that's why, you know, sometimes people say to me, Mike, if you could only choose one tool, what would you choose? And I say, I don't live in that fantasy world. I live in a world where I can buy all the tools I want. And I wouldn't have one tool, but here's what I could do. If I could only have 3 tools, I'd pick a cordless rotary, I'd pick a gear-driven orbital, and I'd pick a short stroke free spinning random orbital. So like a flex rotary, cordless rotary, the Super Beast for a gear-driven 8mm, and something like the Porter cable for a free spinning. And I could tackle any car detailing project with one of those tools, including machine scrubbing vinyl tops, tires, machine sanding, pulling out sanding marks, you name it, I could do it all with those 3 tools. I couldn't do it with just 2, and definitely couldn't do it with just 1.